I wouldn't oppose it.
Okay, and can you elaborate a little bit on?
Yes, the thing is that when the food tax, and I also serve as a village of Hatch, you know, we lose some of that money in there. But the thing is that it doesn't hurt the people, regardless of what people say, it really doesn't hurt the real poor. Because most of them are on food stamps or a WIC program and this. And so the ones that's going to get it's me and you guys that make all the money here at the Sun News are the ones that's going to be paying that. And it's not that much. And it is big money for the state. And we could reduce some other state taxes that would help the people a lot more.
I would oppose more taxes on food. And the reason I would oppose more taxes on food is Mr. Nunez states it doesn't really affect the poor, but there are those of us who live just below, I think the poverty line is now $40,000 is what's considered the poverty line. We make just below $40,000, yet I can't get food stamps. And a tax on food does with the lower middle class and the people that are just barely below the poverty line. We do have a hard time with that. It does take a chunk out of our check. So yes, I would oppose it. We're taxed enough as it is. I absolutely believe we need to have voter ID at the polls, and I'll tell you why. In 2008, my husband and I were standing behind a lady in line at Fair Acres to vote. The woman walks up, she has her driver's license out. And the lady says, "Oh, I don't need that. Give me your name." So she gave her her name, and the woman behind the desk said, "Well, you've already voted. I'm sorry. You can't vote again." But she said, "No, I haven't. I've been at work all day. How can I have voted?" And the lady said, "Well, you voted. There's your signature." And the woman drops her driver's license down on there and she says, "I defy you to match those signatures. That is not mine." And we're told we have no voter fraud in this state. We witnessed voter fraud.
That's a hard question to answer, but I think that everybody ought to prove who they are. And I know I never have to show mine in hats because they know who I am. You know, they go down that list. But then there's some, especially newcomers that come into the state, that you know, the people don't know who they are, and if they come in to vote, some way or another they need to prove, you know, who they are. We need all these incentives that we're giving in the state to bring in, supposedly to bring in industry and increase jobs. We need to take a look at them. One big one is the movie industry. We give them close to $90 million worth of tax incentives and tax breaks, you know, and according to the Arrowhead Center at New Mexico State, for every dollar that we put in on those, we get 14 cents back. And we've had 3 different studies that were done on this, and it varies from for every dollar we make $1.50, and for every dollar we get 40 cents back, and then 14 cents back. And so I just think we need to look at them, cut them back, and we have a lot of others that we do. For example, well, the shop thing in Albuquerque, you might take a look at it now. It's already laying off more people, and we gave them money to set up shop. The Tesla auto deal, we gave them money, and then they took off and went to California. And so that's, to me, is one of the biggest things we need to look at first. Increase revenues. Well, that would increase revenues if we quit giving those out. Yeah. And I think another thing what we need to do is to stop imposing all of these different rules and regulations on the like the oil industry, you know, cap and trade and some of those, you know. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. And them folks bring in a lot of money, but if they're going to be moving out of state and doing this because of some of our rules and regulations, and the construction industry, and now we're wanting to make the people refurbish their houses and put in sprinkler systems, you know, and the new ones, you know, that's one thing that, you know, when you, so that's some places that we can cut down because the construction industry brings in lots of money, just like oil and gas. And so that's some of the places we can start.
I think that we need to reduce, first of all, the burdensome regulations that are placed on industries that want to come to the state and stay in this state. We're not exactly a pro-business environment here. New Mexico could be far more pro-business. We could be far more friendly to business. We need to reform lawsuit abuse. We have a tremendous lawsuit abuse throughout the country, and New Mexico is one of them. We could entice high-tech jobs to come into the state, nuclear energy. Up along the northeastern plains is probably one of the most geologically stable places on the planet. We could put in a nuclear power plant up there. Healthcare industry. We don't have here in the southern part of the state a huge medical facility. I'm a veteran, 20 years in the Air Force, and I have to drive either all the way to Albuquerque or down somewhere in El Paso to see a doctor. If we had a big VA hospital here, or we had a larger medical facility here, they could send us there as opposed to everywhere out of town, which would increase money coming into the state, very definitely. What would be the last thing I would cut? Well, the last thing I would cut would probably be, right now we seem to have a fairly fair, in this part of the country especially, taxes on property. And I think that would be the last thing I would cut, would be property taxes. But we need to cut things like taxes, we need to cut the heavy political bureaucratic machine up in Santa Fe.
Just for clarity, and I may not have asked the question, when I talked about what are the last areas you would look to cut, I'm talking about spending cuts.
Oh, spending cuts. At the moment, I really can't think of any. But I know what I would cut.